You've tuned in to the 49ers Rush podcast, and here is your host, John Chapman.
All right, thanks for listening to the 49ers Rush podcast. I'm your host, John Chapman. Today we are going to be breaking down the 49ers' first of two third-round draft choices, Ahkello Witherspoon, cornerback out of Colorado. Very busy draft, and if you haven't caught on for the first two, please go back and listen to our podcast over Solomon Thomas and his fit and that night, and also for sure Reuben Foster, a person I am very, very passionate about, and by far my favorite pick, probably in the past 3 or 4 drafts we've had that's just going to fit in perfectly. But today we're going to focus on Ahkello Witherspoon, kind of how we acquired him, what that looks like, his pros and cons, and where he's going to fit in with the 49ers. So let's jump right into it. First off, we had 2 picks back-to-back to start off the third round. We had the 66th and 67th overall pick. We ended up trading out of our second pick, number 67 overall in the third round. But with our first pick, we picked Ahkello Witherspoon, which a lot of people were either really, really happy with or really, really couldn't stand him. And we're going to get into a little bit of that. And he's a perfect fit physically with how he's built with the 49ers and kind of their press man scheme with moving over to the 4-3 single high safety. But with John Lynch talking so much about physicality and power and being aggressive, you don't see that in his film. Ahkello, every single person, any article you ever read about him will mention he does not like to hit. So we'll see how that's going to work out and talk through some quotes of what John Lynch and Shanahan both said about him. But we picked him with number 66 overall in the third round. Interesting enough, he was our very first non-traded pick for John Lynch in this new front office. Very, very active in the draft and one trade away from breaking the all-time 49ers record of trades in the draft. He is 6'3", 198. He ran a 4.45, which is just unreal. Such a weird combination of size and speed, and it shows on film. Whenever he runs, nobody leaves him. Even John Ross, the fastest person come out of the combine ever, he stayed with him very, very easily throughout that game. We'll talk about that in a minute. Now, couple interesting facts about Ahkello. He was a pre-med major whenever he transferred from Sacramento Community College. And very smart cat. And if you watch his press conferences or anything, you can just tell nothing really gets to him. And it shows up on film. He never seems too excited. Always calm and collected and kind of chill. Nothing's really too big for him, whether that's press conference, obviously meeting rooms and playbook won't be an issue, and the field as well. Very smart guy, and some people had some concerns. Well, how passionate is he about football? When is he going to start med school and things like that? In his press conference, he said he is not touching med school until he is 100% done with the NFL. And the quote that he said is whether that's 1 year in the league or 12 years in the league, he's not touching med school until he's completely through with football. But once that happens, he is going to make that jump, and he wants to be a surgeon. He's not quite sure what type of surgeon, but that's where he wants to go. And so you can kind of see the pedigree. We're seeing a lot of smart, intelligent, good football players coming out of here. Now, some interesting facts. He was only 5'8" as a senior in high school. This kid blew up. He was actually really big into soccer and baseball. The Blue Jays were interested in him as an outfielder, but decided to go the football route. And now he's a full 6'3" now, so he's blossomed into that role. And interesting enough, he only played football 1 year in high school, so he's relatively raw still. And if you watch his film, they basically put him on the best wide receiver, and they say, you got this guy, man. Use your skills and just play football. I love how Colorado didn't make it complex for him, and I don't think we will be either. Now, interesting enough, his height is not all about his physical tools. If you look at, he had a 40.5-inch vertical, 33-inch arms, and again, his height, 6'3", those all rank in the 90th percentile of all cornerbacks in the entire NFL right now. So saying that he is a long corner, that's a massive understatement. Just to put this in perspective, he has the same length arms as Solomon Thomas, our first-round draft pick on the D-line. And he uses every inch that he has because he led the nation in tipped balls. So let's jump over now, and let's get into film, and let's talk about the positives and what he has to bring. Because there are a lot of negatives too, and we'll get to those in a little bit. But right now, let's focus on the good things. Just as I said, 23 pass defense this year with Colorado, led the nation. He is so good with his hands that he can just allow his feet to kind of mirror and match the receiver as he's going out. He could teach a clinic. He basically lines about 2 to 3 yards off. He's not a guy that's going to play with his hands. That's not who he is. It's almost like he's marking up on a player in soccer. You can tell he has that soccer background because the idea is you want to stay as close to them as possible without getting your hands on them. We're not going to have any issues with pass interference or defensive holding calls with this guy. That's just not who he is. That's not his game. He plays with his feet and he plays with his eyes. And then once the ball's in the air, he's great at getting his head back turned to the play and getting his hand on the ball. Not known for interceptions. He's not an interception type of guy, but he is totally a lockdown corner guy that you don't have to have that safety over the top. And so what he allows us to do is put our free safety in the middle, Jimmy Ward, and you don't have to worry too much about his side. Jimmy Ward patrols the middle. And he can get over there if he needs to, but with a guy like this and his arms like this, again, whenever he guarded John Ross didn't do anything against him. He drew one pass interference penalty, but that was against the safety. That wasn't against Ahkello. Ahkello shut him down and, in fact, had 2 blocked balls, knocked him out of John Ross's hands on the goal line. John Ross went number 9 overall in the NFL draft. So, and again, ran a 4.2 240, John Ross did, and could not leave behind Ahkello. He was there with him the entire game. Now, a couple things. Again, he plays heads up with the receiver, just as I was saying. And what he does is kind of like a mirror match, and then he goes into a trail technique, which is basically I'm going to follow in your hip pocket until you make a play on the ball. Then I'm swinging my head around, and then I'll make a play on the ball before you will because, 1, I'm faster than you are. 2, I'm taller than you are. And 3, I have super long freaking arms. And so as you watch his film, you'll see the quarterback see that somebody's open and throw the ball in there, and it's almost like a go-go gadget arms. He sticks it out. He sticks his arms out there and always gets his hand on the ball. Speed is just off the charts, and it shows. Again, he looks so calm and collected, and it's almost a glider on film. So as he's going through and making his plays, you'll see the receiver chopping his feet and making these breaks, and it's almost just like you can see Ahkello yawning under his helmet because he's just so smooth and calm. Now, let's get into some of these negatives, and this is kind of where it's at. To say that he is not physical is an understatement. Every single game film you watch of him, you will see him run away from contact from the ball carrier. It's almost like he is allergic to tackling. And this is probably why he was available in the 3rd round, because if we just look at his technique in pass coverage, he is a first-round corner. He's exactly what you are looking for. His comparable physical, his number 1 comparable on mock draftable is Richard Sherman. They look exactly alike. Sherman's got a little bit more meat on him. The only difference between a Sherman and Ahkello Witherspoon physically is that Ahkello is twice as fast. He ran a 4.45, whereas Sherman's putting up low 4.6s, maybe a 4.7, and I doubt he could do that now. But the idea is he has everything. If you could draw a corner for our system, he's exactly what it looks like. You just got to work between the head and try to get him aggressive and try to get him to try to tackle. Again, he's a 3-year starter, and in his last year for the Buffaloes at Colorado, he only had 19 solo tackles and 14 games played. So he's good for like a tackle and a half, maybe a game. And even whenever you watch it, he hates it. He'll set the edge, and he'll have outside contain, and he'll let up and kind of pull back as if like he's winching, almost like if you're doing like a little brother 2 for flinching type of thing. He really does not want to take part in this. And so how does this fit? Because John Lynch said that we want to be tough physically and we want to be aggressive, and he is not either one of those two things. And on the press conference of Ahkello, they asked him, they said, hey, did John Lynch talk to you about physicality? And he didn't mince words. He said, actually, every single team I interviewed with all brought that up. And they would show me clips. This is Ahkello talking. They would show me clips of plays where I was aggressive, and then they would show me plays that perhaps they didn't like and ask me what happened there. And he knows that's something that he's got to work on, and he wants to be in the league, and so it's something he's going to do. John Lynch said, and I quote, we will demand, I love that word, demand him to be physical, period. So he's got to change. If he wants to play, he's got to change that part of his game. Now, I have him pegged as a day one starter on the outside. I think we're going to put him at that left cornerback spot just day one and leave him on that side and just say, hey, whichever outside receiver comes this way, he's your guy. Now, let's talk about a couple other just kind of negatives with him. Interceptions is kind of a big knock on him, which is very strange because And with somebody that gets their hands on so many balls, you would think he would be able to pull down some more interceptions. But it's just not the case. He had 3 interceptions in 3 full years at Colorado, and that's it. And he got kind of pissed off in the interview, and they asked him, they said, hey, do you need to work on your hands so that you get some more interceptions? And he kind of cut the reporter off and said, my hands are incredible. Whenever he was asked about his lack of interceptions. So he was like, my hands are fine. In fact, they're incredible. He thinks he's going to be able to get his hands on some more interceptions. But it seems like almost their designed game plan at Colorado was tip the ball away, deflections. And so hopefully we'll be able to change that with him for the 49ers. But you got to love how much he gets his hands on the ball. That's something that you can't teach. And so schematically, again, as I said, he's going to be playing that Richard Sherman role in our defense. And so we're going to put him on the left side, and we are just going to allow him to mirror and match that kind of press corner role. Now, the one thing that's going to be different with him than most, again, he does not use his hands. So it's not so much of a bully technique. It's almost like he's a slot nickel corner and a press man corner's body. And so he's very unique in that instance. Hopefully, if we could figure out a way to get that bully mentality out of him, then we've got a first-round quality player on our hands. Now, flip side of that, if he cannot adapt, and if he cannot get into this physical, mean, bully, come up and make the tackle on the edge type of guy, you're talking about a huge bust pick here, because this is an early pick in the 3rd round. This isn't just a regular 3rd-round pick. This is number 66 overall, where you're trying to pick up a starter. And so, hopefully, he recognizes his deficiencies and he steps up to the level. Obviously, smart cat, everything that you want whenever you're drawing up a corner, and hopefully he can step into that role and he can create for us that extra corner. And if he does, then what an amazing return on value this is going to be. So that's Ahkello Witherspoon. Can't wait to see what it's going to look like out there on the field, but absolutely love the pick, and if he pans out, 49ers fans are going to absolutely love him, because he's not going to have any qualms stopping somebody. Now, he's going to be able to guard somebody much better than the smaller corners, somebody like an A.J. Green, Julio Jones, those prototypical number 1 corners of the NFL. He is going to be able to match up with those guys physically. Now, can he execute? And can he come up to make the tackles? That's going to be kind of the key there. So that's Ahkello Witherspoon. As always, be sure to follow me on Twitter. The Twitter name is JL_Chapman. Again, that's JL_Chapman. Any questions you got on there, send them over. We'll be doing C.J. Beathard next, quarterback out of Iowa that we traded up for in the 3rd round. So that's where we're going next, and hope all is well, and you guys have a great day.